Hey, what's up? This is Brandon Simmons for BrandonSimmons.biz, and this is my weekly video blog called Bullheaded, a review of the Houston Texans news, as well as a preview of their upcoming game matchups. So, this week, we can all take a breather. The season is done. Excuse me. Yeah, season is done. Um, it's been an interesting ride this year. Personally, first off, I want to thank everybody that's been rocking with Bullheaded, either from the beginning or if you either just kind of caught on with it this year. I noticed like a lot of my Facebook views have jumped up quite a bit. Um, and I'm saying a couple of my a couple of people have kind of engaged with it as well. Shout out to my homeboy Tyler. Shout out to my homeboy Ugo, way back from Texas State. You know what I'm saying? They've really been engaging with the content. Shout out to my boo Alicia. Thank you for putting hearts on my posts, making me look all soft and whatnot. I love it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, definitely thank you to everybody that's been supportive of this year, and especially during these trying times. So let's go ahead and let's kind of just get into it. So this right here is going to be a review of the Houston Texans 2022 season. And as I keep mentioning out of nervousness the past few times, it's been a hectic ride and for the uh, hectic for the worst part. You know what I'm saying? So, um, and there's a lot of things to really just touch on and just point out, and I'll try to break down each of those things as much as I can. So first off, I just want to say, like, overall, this was pretty much disappointing season to say the least. And that's saying a lot considering that the fans knew what this was. I feel like the players knew what it was too. But as far as coming from a fan's perspective, we knew that we were in the middle of a rebuild, and so the roster wasn't going to be, spectacular. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't going to be as competitive as we would like it to be. Um, we definitely wanted to see a little bit more fight out of this team overall, but it just didn't seem like that was the case in a lot of instances. Didn't seem like that was the case from the players or the coaches, and so what happens is you get this result. You know what I'm saying? You get the number 2 spot in the NFL draft when we could have had the number 1 spot, and that's a whole other story that I'll probably touch on later, but I really won't get into it too much right now. So with that being said, I guess I'll just start with the first, maybe more the recent news, and that's Lovey Smith, and just starting off with him being fired, but just observing like kind of what he's done with this team overall, and so Lovey, he came on at a peculiar time. He was actually he was actually hired after David Culley, but if you can remember, the Texans were, kind of in their own search. They had, a couple candidates on their radar and all this other stuff. And at the time that they were trying to do their coaching search, the Brian Flores suit had kind of broke. And so, if you don't remember, Brian Flores filed a class action suit against the league, and claiming that the Dolphins was forcing him to lose on purpose, and they were kind of sabotaging him and all this other stuff. And what I'm saying, it was a big mess, and it was a big mess because it pertained to how the NFL and its teams were hiring black coaches or black head coaches for that matter. And so each year around this time that gets criticized because yeah, that is saying an issue when you see like talented black coaches get overlooked and get passed up for white coaches that are not so great. You know what I'm saying? And so there's some you know there's obviously some white coaches that are out there that are amazing. You see with Sirianni, and I bring up Sirianni because I think he was one of the names brought up, like, in the middle of all that controversy or whatever. But, Sirianni, McVay, guys like that. You know what I'm saying? But that's not to dwell on that. That's really just to bring up the point that, Lovey Smith was brought in under like kind of a weird circumstance. Like it didn't seem like the reporters knew that he was on the hiring list until like the last minute. And so once they found out, probably maybe 24 hours later, they actually hired him, which seemed kind of weird. You know what I'm saying? Um, so we got past that, and we was like, Lovey, he had some experience, blah 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 blah. He could probably whip this team into shape, and it just didn't seem like that at all. And the crazy part was, Lovey kind of evaded criticism early on because a lot of the attention was focused on, Davis Mills and how he was playing. And so soon that attention went from Davis Mills to Pep Hamilton to Lovey Smith. It seemed like, what I'm saying, probably like a little over half of the season, past the halfway mark of the season, I mean, Lovey Smith, his name started coming up in coaching rumors as far as like getting fired or getting on the hot seat. So this isn't like a big shock to anybody that he got fired. It's something that the fans have probably discussed or thought about, but it's also been rumors here or there for a long time that he would be let go at the end of the season. And so when this news broke, there were a couple of reports saying that the team wasn't really responding to him, for like a couple weeks now or more than a few weeks now, and that kind of that kind of stuck out to me when I heard that because it was like I get it if it was like in the middle of the season around November and all that, but if they stopped responding to him, for that long, then what was happening when they were playing against the Cowboys and the Chiefs? Because so for what it's worth, they kind of had a little bit more pep. They had a little bit more pep in their step as far as like playing against those two teams, and those probably were like their best games of the year. And then to top it off, they beat the Titans. So it's something that's like what are they what did they actually respond to it, or was this like a what I'm saying, maybe a correlation of trying to audition for a new coach that's coming in, or for some of these guys, the new coach that they're going to, should they not end up on this team. So that was a real interesting statement that they made about surrounding him getting fired. And as I mentioned, this team just underachieved under him. And this is Lovey Smith. Like he has a spotty record on some places, but he's also been able to do some type of, what I'm saying, good with, the rosters with some of the rosters that he's had. So, that a lot of people thought that, what I'm saying, he would definitely be able to lift this roster up into the right direction at least, so, that's just what it is. Excuse me. Yeah, that's just really what it is, with Lovey Smith. And just, a team that, when a team underachieves for a majority part of the season, uh, sorry, y'all, trying to get my, I'm trying to get my screen right. But when a team underachieves for a majority part of the season, the coach is gonna that is definitely gonna fall on the coach. You know what I'm saying? Because this was both sides of the ball. You know, offense and defense. You know what I'm saying? Um, so yeah, of course he's gonna have to fall on that, and hopefully the next coach comes in. It's gonna be a little bit different as far as the approach of hiring them. So we'll talk about that in a few. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is Davis Mills regression. So look, at the end of last season, Davis Mills played pretty great. You know what I'm saying? Even got a win over the Chargers. So a team that was, on the rise or whatever. But that those games that he played in, it really got people hyped coming into this season. And even going into the off season. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, they recognized that he struggled early on when he first came out there. It was like, who is this guy? Why is he here? And how can we get rid of him? So you know what I'm saying? So they realized that, yeah, he struggled for a little bit. And so, what I'm saying? He's a rookie. That's expected. So he got, after his first couple games, taking up in his rookie season, taking over for Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor came back. Then they sent Tyrod Taylor back to the bench, and so that second go round for Davis Mills, he came out strong. And so we had something to look forward to in the off season, in the preseason, then in the regular season. However, the preseason came, and to me, I said this numerous times. It just looked weird the way he was playing in the preseason. I would think that they would actually like kind of utilize him a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? Be more aggressive with him in the preseason. And granted, they probably did really see something with Damian Pierce in training camp that they were like, we feel like we can get more value in giving him a little bit more playing time or whatever. And so, they gave Damian Pierce a shine. Um, and you know what I'm saying? He made a real impact um, within this preseason. And, eventually it paid off for him in the season. Um, but as far as like going back to Davis Mills, like a lot of people were excited about what he can do in the passing game, and we didn't need him to be no dual threat. Like we thought, like he probably had some, if he gets some work in and all this other stuff, he could really be a threat. Just staying in the pocket or whatever, and that just was not the case. And it didn't seem like the coaches were just thrilled with him, if that makes sense, because they just didn't utilize him as much as they did in these last couple months. I think there was one game. I mentioned that there was one game that they were playing. I can't remember if it was some game, and one of the announcers made the comment that you know that Pep Hamilton brought up that Mills didn't have like a lot of experience, and so for some reason that just stuck out to me because it's like maybe that's what's kind of holding them back because they don't know what he knows or they don't feel like he knows enough at this point in his career to like just really, grasp the concept of the offense. And so, and that's crazy to just kind of have that. I feel like that's crazy to kind of have that, to have those thoughts at this far down the line in his development. Because you've had this guy for a year and a half. This is the second year that you worked with him, and now you have these, reservations about him. Um, so with that being said, it kind of his stalling development just really kind of stalled the offense, and it obviously affected certain members of the team, aka Brandon Cooks, because he probably saw like where this was going, and he was like, I kind of want to bounce because I need to go somewhere where what I'm saying I can really utilize my skill set, which is a dope skill set. What I'm saying he has the numbers to back that up, but with a regressing quarterback, in his second year, that's hard for him to like kind of stick around and uh, want to be, actually putting in work for. Um, but with all that being said, I don't think Davis Mills deserves all the blame. So there was some. I mean, there was he, he's like with the quarterback. They start the offense. It stops and starts on the quarterback for the most part. And eventually they tried to, get through Damian Pierce, but Damian Pierce is still a rookie. You know what I'm saying? So he still has like a lot of learning to do. And, he still led our rookies in rushing yards despite, what I'm saying, being shut down probably right after the Dallas game, which is probably 3, 4 games ago. But uh, that's but you can't blame everything on Davis Mills. Um, there were some instances where the O line would have some pre snap penalties. Tunsil, everybody's been raving about Tunsil, and he's looking for his extension. And what I'm saying, he probably does deserve it. But what I'm saying, there were some moments where it was like, why would you make that false start? Why would you make that hole? Kenyon Green, he had his moments too, and he's a rookie too. That's what I'm saying. So Kenyon Green, he's a rookie, still learning, just like Pierce was. So just things like that. So he really doesn't. So Davis Mills can't take all the blame on that. You know what I'm saying? Players, they made some mistakes too. There was some drops as well. You know what I'm saying? But also, I think coaching issues as well. And so I think with the coaches not being able to figure out how to use Davis Mills um, to his full capabilities, it kind of it kind of stopped. It obviously stopped the offense too because they're calling the plays. So they're calling the play. They're going to call plays based on what they know that he can do. And if they don't feel like he can do too much, then they're not going to call the right plays to help this team out. So I definitely think coaching issues really played a part in his regression. I'm not sure what they're going to do with Pep Hamilton. I don't know if he's staying. I don't know if they're clearing him out as the offensive coordinator or if they're keeping him for the new guy coming in or for the new quarterback coming in. Knock on wood or ironing board. But um, yeah, is Davis Mills' regression was definitely a big part of why this team was the way it was. So going to my next point about this season, and that's Nick Caserio, and the observation I have on him. Let me. That should be a beer, cause nah. On the cool, Nick Caserio is like one of the more interesting GM cases, and I really didn't even study him like closely. I think he's an interesting case because, and I probably just said that just say that, but he's interesting because it seemed like everybody was in love with him so quickly, and then they just fell out of love with him just as fast. And I didn't think that was fair to him, to be honest with you. But I do think it's fair that, they kind of hold him accountable on certain things. So I don't know if anybody remembers. I think they tried to go after Casario before, and the Texans ended up having to lose like a couple of draft picks or something because they were kind of tampering with him. And so once they couldn't get him, I think they moved on to, I don't know if it's Brian Gaines. I think that's when they went with Bill O'Brien at the time. So, but that's all in the past, and circle back to today. I think people were really excited about what he can bring. And he did, he did have some big wins. So he got the Deshaun Watson trade going. And, people can, I don't know why people tried to discredit that trade as much as they did. It's Deshaun Watson. And this man, this man ended up getting like 6 first-round picks for us. You've never heard of nothing like that every other day. Well, except the Rudy Gobert trade, but that's somebody else's conversation. But anyway, I would say that he's really. I think he has some big wins. Now, I'll talk about so the Sean Watson trade. That's one. The draft. I think he did make some good finds in this draft. So he obviously got a steal with Damian Pierce, and that's a steal even for like how they treat running backs today. You never know where they go first round, fifth round, any of that. But I think for him getting Damian Pierce in the fourth round and Pierce doing what he was able to do, I definitely think that's a steal. That's definitely a win. He got Jalen Petrie out the second round. Excuse me. Traditional energy drink burp. Yeah, Jalen Petrie out the second round. Um, Derek Stingley was nice before he got hurt. I think hopefully he stays healthy, get healthier, and what I'm saying, they'll be able to like continue doing what he does. Um, so yeah, just pretty much a good draft. John Michie, uh, it's still yet to be it's still yet to be seen like what he'll actually do once he, what I'm saying, comes back from his leukemia diagnosis. And so I think that's going to be something that once once the fans remember that, oh, we got this guy here, uh, what I'm saying, yada yada yada. Let's, what I'm saying, let's see what happens with him. So yeah, I think and he comes in right at the time, right on time when Brandon Cooks was talking about getting a trade. So but anyway, so yeah, he has some good finds in this past draft, and first draft, a lot of people didn't want to like count it. Well, it was alright. You know what I'm saying? It obviously didn't turn out the way that we expected to this year, but definitely it's exciting to see what becomes of these draft picks from the 2022 draft. Now, despite those wins, you have to hold them accountable for these coaching hires. And the coaching hires, they really affected this organization's success because the way they've gone have been terrible, and so never mind the fact that these coaches have came in and they've had some pretty bad teams, but the way that their firings have happened has not been so pleasant. And so with David Culley, I think a lot of people were kind of cutting him some slack. They were surprised. I think there were some people that were surprised that he was let go after a year. And you had to be honest with you, you had to cut him some slack. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had to deal with the Deshaun Watson situation of Watson not wanting to be there. Then the case holding over his head or whatever, over Watson's head. But he also he had to deal with a wild bad roster. So yeah, he had to work through that and everything else. And I mean, he's a coach. That's what they brought him in to do. You know what I'm saying? That, but obviously these guys weren't like, just really just up to par. And not only that, he had to deal with players that were like leaving, just openly talking about that they were wanting to go. So he had to weather that storm as well. And so to be honest with you, man, Cully, he deserved at least another year just to see like where he could take this team, uh, where he could take this team. But obviously that wasn't in his plans. So with that being said, in comes Lovey Smith. And I mentioned earlier about how Lovey Smith kind of came in and, what I'm saying, he came in under the circumstances of, the whole Brian Flores suit was going on. And, a lot of, a lot of teams that were still looking for coaches were going to be looked at kind of funny if they chose a white coach. Let's just put it out there. So I feel like he got hired on that aspect because the way they announced him getting hired was like so quick in the dark that they just kind of threw somebody in there and here you go. This is this is the results you get. And so me personally, I guess we could, what? Let's just put it out there. So I seen somebody mention about kind of dismiss the fact that, oh, this really wasn't about race. We gave him so much money to come and do this and hold it down and yada yada yada. The thing about racism, and I'm not going into no racism talk. That's somebody else's conversation. But anyway, the thing about that is when it comes to black coaches or getting hired, it's just a complex. It's just anything dealing with race is just complex. It's not especially these days. It's not so much as the name calling thing that saying people, you call somebody a racial name, then you get labeled a racist. This sometimes it's a for the most part it's a little bit more complex than that. There's a lot of psychological and hidden things that's involved in it these days. Somebody could really take his coaching hires as a racial thing. They really could. You've had if you look at the last 2 years, he's hired two. They can just look on the surface and say like you hired two black coaches and you fired them both after 1 year. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you can take that as racial. I didn't take that as racial at first, and I'm still on the fence about whether that's racial or not because there has to be a lot of other information presented. But my thing is, I see that you hired two coaches in the last 2 years and you fired them both after a year. So that's not so much a reflection on the coaches. That's not how I take it as. That's something that's kind of reflecting on you because you don't know what you're looking for in a coach, or obviously, you know, I know the team is bad, but you're not really selling this team's culture. You know what I'm saying? On these coaches. And so look, I know the team is going through some things, the roster is going through some things. It's still a work in progress. You know what I'm saying? So, but I feel like that's something that you know Casario should really be held accountable for, as far as like who is he picking to be these coaches, and so that's my main critique on him. Um, I didn't hear his whole press conference. From what it looked like was being reported, um, his future looks his future looks questionable. From what he can probably tell you, or what he probably suggests, or wants you to feel, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they actually move, as far as like getting a new coach or just decisions overall. I think it was him that mentioned that Cal McNair is going to be kind of sitting in on his coaching process, and I wasn't aware that he just wasn't doing that the previous times. But if he is, if he decides to take on, if he decides to kind of oversee this process a little bit, it's going to be interesting to see, like, if he kind of steers them in the right direction, or what his input actually is. So, um, the immediate future for the Texans. So it's I think everybody's all in on getting another quarterback drafted. You know, either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. Uh, both both of them look spectacular. I saw him. I didn't see most of Bryce Young. I didn't see Bryce Young play in this college football playoff. I think it was the Sugar Bowl or something. I did see him play against UT, and I thought that was a pretty neat game for him. And I just kind of caught him like here and there. Um, Stroud, I kind of the same thing. I did see him play in his college football playoff game, and yeah, man, his stock might have raised. I ain't gonna lie. Like, I think the Texans are in a good spot. Like, if we don't get Young, then that's a good thing that Stroud is there. Now, pro days are coming as well. Combine's coming, so I mean, it could be a chance that Stroud actually jumps up into the number one spot as well. But it seems like it's a consensus. We need a quarterback. Simple as that. Um, there's a lot. Speaking of that, though, there's a lot of worrying around that number one pick, and so a lot of fans super mad that the Texans actually won that game Sunday against the Colts. And I was the more I talk about the game with like other people that don't watch it, like, what I'm saying, like my girlfriend, if I tell my boss, if I tell a coworker or something about it, like when I'm done with the conversation, I kind of just get more mad about the whole situation overall. But um, it's a lot of worries around that number one pick that Chicago got, and my personal worries is that they're going to trade down to the Colts or somebody for whatever. You know what I'm saying? And the Colts are going to go up number one. They're going to get, Bryce Young. Um, or they just, I don't know, they end up drafting, if Chicago ends up drafting Bryce Young, which I don't think will happen. I feel like I'm not even trying to like plead with them on this. Like, I genuinely feel like they have their quarterback. They have their franchise quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Justin Fields, he's made some improvements this year, not just in the not just in rushing, but definitely in passing and throwing the ball. He just needs to work on that a little bit more, and he'll really truly be like a dual threat, just as much as Lamar Jackson probably. But so they don't really need to like go draft another quarterback. You know what I'm saying? They got other areas that they can fill in. I personally think they should go. This is the draft where, what I'm saying, they get a Jalen Carter or Will Anderson to kind of build up their defense, after they lost Roquan Smith and Khalil Mack in the last two seasons. So um, I feel Chicago should go that route. You know what I'm saying? And then, Texans make that tough choice, or whether it's Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. I didn't see if Max Dugan was I heard he might have been entering the draft or whatever, but we'll kind of see what happens with that. Um, and I don't know where Stetson Bennett is. They apparently I did not know Stetson Bennett was older than Josh Allen. So I'm probably gonna scratch him off my draft list until I listen to Mel Kiper or somebody. So we'll see what happens with that. Um but yeah, as far as like what Chicago does with that pick, man, hopefully they go defensive and not trade down with anybody that needs a quarterback. So that's what I'm keeping my fingers crossed for, keeping my prayers open for. Um, Final thing I want to talk about for the Texans season, the approach to the coaching has to be different. But take D'Amico Ryans. That's it. I mean, look, not sure like um I can't emphasize this enough, but as much as it seems like every year around this time, the conversation around black coaches getting hired, it gets louder and it just gets it just gets louder. You know what I'm saying? But it seems like just nobody really listens to it. And so it just gets tiring also to a point. And that's unfortunate because we should be looking at, all coaches, what I'm saying, of all different skin tones, black, white, Spanish, all that. You know what I'm saying? We should be praising them equally. We should be ridiculing them equally. You know what I'm saying? It's in an ideal world, we would, you know what I'm saying, be doing that. But what I'm saying? That's really not the case. So um I think they have to but they so when Casario makes these moves and he hires these coaches, then he just fires them like nothing. Like it's it looks bad. Like it looks bad on not just on him, but it looks bad on the organization overall. You know what I'm saying? And the Texans, people might not have realized this. The Texans have think before Deshaun Watson, the Texans have kind of had like a bunch of side eyes as far as like when it came to picking black quarterbacks, coaches and all that other stuff. And so, what I'm saying, for them to like kind of just fire coaches, like this, given the fact that, this roster kind of needs a little bit of work. You know what I'm saying? It showed a little bit improvement in the draft, but it still needs a little bit more work. It still needs some more players to kind of get this thing really going. And you're just throwing coaches away that's key in helping these guys develop. So it just looks bad on the franchise. So that approach has to be different. You know what I'm saying? And whether that's going after D'Amico Ryans, whether that's going after a Jonathan Gannon, you know what I'm saying? Just make sure that the approach is different from last time and that the expectations and investment in this new guy is better than what you've had in for these last two coaches. But please take D'Amico Ryans. That's for real, for real. Former Texan. That'll be a good story. That'll be something that the fan base can just really get behind. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I got to say about that. So, like I said, man, it was a tough year once again, but I enjoyed talking about it all year, week in and week out. Um, that's all I got for y'all. This week, shoot, this season. Um, I'm Brandon Simmons for BrandonSimmons.biz. Holla Black. Happy New Year. See y'all next season.